Welcome back to Living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thanks so much for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about the beautiful city of Piedmont, California, located smack dab in the middle of the city of Oakland. We're going to talk a little bit about the history and why Piedmont became its own city, as well as what it's like to live there and why people love living in there. So excited for you to join me. Let's get into it. I'm Andrea West. I'm a Bay Area native and have been a realtor since 2010. I live in the East Bay and I love all things real estate. So whether you're looking to move in 9 days or 90 days, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. My contact information is below. I've also got a QR code in my banner if you want to book a meeting with me. And don't forget to subscribe for more content. All right, so let's get into Piedmont. So here is a lovely map of the East Bay. And what we're looking at right now in the red is Oakland. And then right here in the middle is the city of Piedmont. So as we zoom in a little bit further, you can see Piedmont truly is surrounded by Oakland and some of the really popular parts of Oakland too. This is up in kind of one of the hillier parts of Oakland. It's not down in the flats. And there is a lot to see and do around Piedmont. Piedmont Avenue in Oakland being one of the biggest walkable areas, as well as Grand Lake, which does run through the corner of Piedmont as well. There's the Grand Lake Theater and tons to see and do. There's lots of eateries, restaurants, bars, coffee shops, lots of fun stuff and shopping on Grand Lake, on Piedmont Avenue, and in and around Piedmont. Up here, you've got Montclair Village as well. So what happened? Why is there this entirely different city right in the middle of Oakland? So why is the city of Piedmont right smack dab in Oakland, almost like a donut hole, if you will? It's so funny. I actually didn't know the entire history behind the city of Piedmont, and I'm so glad that I dove into it for this episode. So why is Piedmont right in the middle of Oakland, almost like a donut hole, taking up all this space and surrounded by the city of Oakland entirely? Well, let's give you a little bit of context. Piedmont is less than 4,000 houses big, and it's roughly around 10,600 people. So it's a very small city. It's not the biggest space. It's only about 2 miles big. That being said, when you look at the borders, so looking at Piedmont right here, right in the middle of Oakland, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. You know, the more you zoom in, the more you see it doesn't follow any particular streets in one way. They kind of just are these like zigzag little jagged parts of the street. It's kind of funny. And actually, fun little fact, about 136 houses along the border here actually share part of their property in Oakland and part in Piedmont. Isn't that funny? Like, it's so weird. So it really got me thinking, why is Piedmont the way it is and what happened? Well, as history would have it, apparently in the late 1800s, the founders of Oakland decided they wanted to make one really big city in the East Bay, one of the biggest cities in the Bay Area. And they didn't want a lot of these little suburban towns. Well, according to Oakland librarian Steve Lavoie, who did an interview with KQED, apparently the founders of Oakland felt that smaller suburban cities would lead to more potential corruption because it meant that maybe people who were running the cities could have a monopoly, more hands in the cookie jar, so to speak, and a lot more potential, more loss of money and issues, possibly embezzlement within smaller cities. So they decided one big city was going to have more oversight and a lot less potential for corruption. In their quest in 1907 to absorb a lot of these other cities, they actually went to Berkeley. Berkeley denied them. Berkeley said, nope, we are our own city. We don't want to be part of Oakland. They went to Piedmont and they said, hey, Piedmont, you know, we want to make you officially part of Oakland. We're going to bring it to a vote. Well, the paperwork got filed to put it on for a vote, and apparently there was some language that wasn't quite right. It got missed, and there was a loophole, and then they had to delay the actual vote for Piedmont to be part of Oakland. In the meantime, there were a couple folks in Piedmont who felt, I don't know if this is such a good idea. So some of the folks in Piedmont decided that maybe they didn't want to be part of Oakland after all. So at the time, Piedmont was actually a mix of bohemian artists and business people, and they kind of started talking. So a tragedy had happened in 1892. The Piedmont Springs Hotel had caught fire, and it was a huge problem, and they had to get the fire department involved to come up and save the hotel. Well, the nearest fire department was in Oakland. It was way far away, and this was back in the time of horse and buggies and dirt roads, and they had to bring the water with them. They didn't have fire hydrants at the time. So as you can imagine, the amount of time it took for the Oakland Fire Department to respond to this event and this tragedy was probably a lot longer than ideal, right? And they're coming up to try and put out this hotel fire. So Piedmont actually at the time was thinking, well, if we had our own city and our own infrastructure, we had our own fire department, our own police department, we could be relying on ourselves to be taking care of ourselves and be more sustainable rather than relying on Oakland, who maybe doesn't have the services and our best interests at mind because they're so big. So Piedmont took a vote. They voted amongst themselves. So the vote for Oakland to absorb Piedmont and make it part of Oakland actually had to get postponed. There was some paperwork that didn't get filed right, and unfortunately that meant there was a loophole that needed to get fixed. So it got postponed until March. So in the meantime, Piedmont was thinking maybe they didn't want to do this after all. So the people of Piedmont got together, they took a vote together, and they actually voted to make Piedmont its own incorporated city, totally separate from Oakland, before the vote to join Oakland was on the table. So in that meantime, they basically took matters into their own hands and became Piedmont. So the town took a vote, and they had 8 people more that voted for Piedmont to become its own city than for Piedmont to not be its own city. So that meant Piedmont was going to be its own city. Those 8 votes did it. Well, that being said, once March came around, they still had to vote on whether or not they were going to be part of Oakland or not. And what's really funny is actually more people turned up to vote to be part of Oakland. They voted 63 to 43. So that meant 20 more people wanted to be part of Oakland than didn't want to be Oakland. However, Piedmont was already its own city, and you need a 2/3 vote in order to overturn a previous vote. So that meant that they were going to stay Piedmont. They never became part of Oakland. Super fun, interesting part of history. I had no idea it was so nuanced. There was a lot to kind of think about there because it was such a different time, such a different perspective on everything. So that being said, here we are today. What's the difference between living in Piedmont and Oakland? Well, as I mentioned, Piedmont is pretty tiny. It's only 1.8 miles. It's up in the middle of the hills in Oakland. So it's surrounded by a lot of Oakland. But Piedmont itself, by and large, is almost entirely residential. It's a lot of houses. They're beautiful, gorgeous houses. A lot of them can be a lot bigger and more stately. You've got anything from the mid 1 millions where things need a lot of work and they're smaller houses up to 7 million plus for some of these really big houses. Living in Piedmont is definitely more of a luxury, higher end place of living for a few different reasons. One being the actual architecture of the homes. They are bigger homes. The streets are really landscaped. So here's just one screen share. I can show you a little bit. This is kind of one of the houses in Piedmont. A lot of the houses look like this. You can see just really big, mature landscaping, nice manicured yards, and these beautiful homes. I mean, a lot of these were built in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and then there are definitely some that have been built a little bit later or renovated for different reasons over the years. So just kind of going down the streets of Piedmont, this is kind of what you can expect. And you can see this is more kind of the 1950s, 60s era here. So they're definitely not cookie cutter. They're kind of a mix. You can definitely get some stuff in the $2-3 million range, and then it goes up from there. The Hampton House is, I think, around the $15 million range, and that has tennis courts and a rose garden. I mean, really, the swath of what you can get in Piedmont is pretty varied. And all of the streets are and most of the streets are just really well manicured. Start that again. So this is just one of the streets in Piedmont, and this is kind of what you can expect. It's almost entirely This is kind of what you can expect in Piedmont. It's almost entirely residential, so a lot of the streets are like this, and you can kind of see this different variety. You can see the different varieties of houses in Piedmont. So what is it like to live in Piedmont? Well, being it's its own city, it's got its own police, got its own fire department, it's got a high school, it's got all sorts of its own stuff and infrastructure there, but they do rely on Oakland for some certain things. I believe even the sewer system is not fully autonomized for Piedmont. A lot of the things are integrated because back in the early 1900s, that's just how it was. And being that Piedmont didn't want to sign over the rights to their city, essentially, essentially. They were the holdout there, and I think it kind of put a little bit of a wrench in Oakland's plans to take over that whole space. So that being said, it is a little bit different there. It's not your cookie cutter lines and cookie cutter separate infrastructure in some capacities. There are some nice things that Piedmont, people like living in Piedmont who like living in a suburban oasis right in the middle of Oakland, because Oakland has got all of the urban comforts. It's got Rockridge and Temescal very close by, as well as Montclair Village, and then you've got Lake Merritt not too far down the road, and the Grand Lake District on Grand Avenue as well. So, you know, some people in Piedmont, they can just walk down the hill, go check out Grand Lake, go over to Temescal or Rockridge, and go get a bite to eat, get something to do. If they don't want to walk, you can obviously drive, and it's really convenient. But it's not in Oakland either, so it definitely does have a different vibe. It's almost entirely residential up there, and what's kind of fun is you'll be driving in Oakland, across the street, you won't even know it, you're in Piedmont, and then next thing you know, you're back in Oakland again because it's not that big. Plus, the nice thing is because it's not that big of a town, there's not that much of a commute to take your kid to and from school, versus some of the other parts of Oakland, being that it is a sprawl of an urban area, you may have to shuttle across town in traffic, which can be a little more inconvenient. Piedmont, nice and small, probably a little bit easier to get around. There are 5 parks in Piedmont that really help cater to people with dogs and kids and families and people of all ages. Definitely check out Piedmont Park if you like the outdoors. And you're very close to the Oakland Hills and a lot of the hiking that is around there. You can just head up to Tilden if you want to go hiking, or go up to the Redwood Forest. Because it's further from the freeway, a lot of people in Piedmont enjoy that it's a little bit quieter and they don't get as much of the smog and congestion and traffic noise from the freeways, but they're still close enough that you can get there in a few minutes. If you're thinking about living in the East Bay and you want a great place with good schools, clean parks, beautiful streets, and gorgeous homes, and so if you're thinking about moving to the Bay Area and you want somewhere with great schools, good parks, beautiful houses, and that's close to a lot of urban comforts, but in your own little suburban bubble, definitely check out Piedmont. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's Andrea West. I've been a realtor since 2010, and I live in the East Bay. I'm a Bay Area native. If you have any questions about Piedmont or any other cities or neighborhoods in the Bay Area, I would love to chat with you. My contact information's below. You can shoot me a text, give me a call, or send me an email. My QR code is in my banner. You can book a meeting with me. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I love bringing you more content about living in the San Francisco Bay Area. When you and I work together, your goals are my business. Until next time.